Well, ladies and gentlemen, now we're going to get into the nitty gritty of how all these different things that I've already showed you where they're at in the room, how they go together, and what they're used for. The first thing we're going to start with is going to be the tripod, right? So the tripod legs, I'll open by pulling them out. There's a small silver button on the top of the leg. If you push that in and pull the leg up, it'll go all the way out to the side. So if you wanted to position it against a wall or something else. So the legs all flaps all the way down. Next, what we're going to talk about is the plate on the tripod itself. So on the top of the tripod is the plate where it mounts to the head. You pull the lever with the silver button on it towards yourself, push the button in when it starts to get to the end, and it'll click in place and the tripod plate will come away from the tripod. Now, on the bottom of the tripod plate, there's an arrow that says lens. That arrow needs to be facing in the same direction of the lens of the camera so that when it goes under the tripod, all of the movements are in the same position, right? So I'm going to grab my camera and grab my plate with the arrow pointing the direction of the lens. We're going to thread the screw into the bottom of the hole on your camera, position it in the center, then using our screwdriver, tighten it up. You don't have to go gorilla style on it. Nice and snug is plenty. Once the plate is on the camera, we're going to take the tripod and we're going to open up all the legs and stand it upright. So, coming over here to my right so I can get to some floor. Okay, to extend the tripod, you always want to use the thickest part of the legs first, right? The thickest part is going to be the part up at the top. So with all the legs compressed together like this, we're going to go ahead and extend that. We'll go to our second one and extend that. Then we'll go to our third and extend that. Once they're all locked into position, we then stand the tripod up and bring all the legs out to their fullest stop points. You want to go all the way to the point where they stop. That way it's got maximum stability. We always start with the thickest legs of the tripod first, because as we get it higher, the less stable it will become. Okay, so now we're going to take the head and we're going to move the first knob, and then we're going to move the second knob. So these work by loosening them and then tightening them back up, and there are 3 of them total. So the one down here on the bottom is going to be what we call our pan. That's going to go from left and to right. The one here to our left hand is going to be our tilt. It's going to go forward and that's going to go back. Then, the last but not least, we have our orientation. Right now it's in landscape. This would be portraiture, right? The big thing you want to make sure is you want to flatten this head out as close to level as possible. Make sure all these are nice and snug, right? So it's not going to move on us. Now we're going to take our camera. There's a flat side of this plate where it mates with the tripod head, right? So that's going to come into the tripod head at a slight angle, and you're going to rack it down and then you're going to push it down. It's going to click into place. You probably should have heard that, right? So once it's mounted there, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to pick the camera up. The tripod should follow. That way we know it's attached and it's not going to fall off of it, right? So then verify all of your knobs are tightened so it doesn't go flopping around on you. At this point, this is now safely mounted to the tripod. So, last but not least, we're going to have a center column. You loosen the lock knob here on the side, and the center column can go up and go down, right? So, the center column is always a last resort. It's not stable when it comes up to that height, and the whole point of it is for it to be stable. These tripods do one other thing, and I'll show you that here. I'm going to remove the camera by pulling the lever towards me, pushing the silver button in, pull the camera up and away, and it's no longer attached. Put it safely on the countertop. On these tripods, this piece can go up and become horizontal. In order to do that, you loosen the column lock. On the bottom of the shaft, there's a little spring-loaded button. You push that in, it will come up, it will go out, and we'll go to the side. Now we can tighten this up. We can mount a camera to it, but we're going to have to put a counterweight on this side so that it doesn't become a tip hazard. This is very useful when you're doing food work or any other kind of tabletop work and you want a shot that goes completely straight down. To restore that to its vertical position, loosen the lock, slide the piece in, push the button in on the shaft, rotate it up, and then back down, then tighten it back up again. Okay? Again, whenever we place a camera on top of a tripod, flat piece of the plate matches with the flat piece of the head. It's going to go into that, it's going to push down, it's going to lock and click in place. We pick up the tripod, the camera follows. All right, so that's a quick introduction to the tripod. The next one, we're going to talk about how to mount a light to a light stand. See you then. Hey guys, so now what we're going to do is we're going to talk about light stands and lights and how we mount the two together. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to open up the legs on the light stand. We're going to loosen this one right here, right? And we're going to gently pull all three of the legs out. Once they start to come out a little bit, we're going to push down on the collar. The most important thing about this process is that we want the stand legs to be extended as far as they possibly can be, right? And that way it gives us the maximum amount of stability so we don't tip it over and break one of these lights. And we know that they're at their maximum distance when these bars right here are parallel to the surface that it's sitting on, all right? Typically you would not be doing this on top of a table. I'm just doing it for demonstration purposes. So now we're going to take the stand, we're going to place it on the ground, and we're going to grab one of our alien bees. Whenever we're handling the alien bees, we always want to make sure that this protective cap is on the light until we put a modifier on it. Inside that, we're going to find a flash tube. Inside of that, we're going to find our modeling lamp. This bulb right here, you cannot touch with your bare hands. The oils on your fingers will get into contact with the glass. When it fires, it'll actually cause the glass to warp and then break. So we always handle them with the protective cap in place. So we grab the light. First thing we're going to do is we're going to loosen this bar right here, which is called the yoke. We're going to position the yoke so that the mate point is straight out, right? Then we're going to make sure that this screw, locked screw, is unscrewed to its maximum point so that we do not see it up inside. We're going to take the light and we're going to slide it on top of the light stand. Once it's there, we're going to go ahead and tighten that lock screw up. So now the light is attached to the stand, right? We use the yoke right here. When we loosen that, we can tip the light forward or we can tip the light back, and we clamp it down to lock it in place, right? So that is how we put a light on top of a light stand. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to put a modifier on top of the light. So I have right here is what we call a 6-inch reflector. This mounts to the front of the light. So these are called alien bees because these little two spring-loaded pieces at the top kind of look like the antennae on a bee. So they call them alien bees. In order to release the safety cap, we're going to grab those two metal pieces and we're going to pinch them. Just like so. It's a spring-loaded system. We take the cap, we put it away. We're going to grab the reflector. We're going to squeeze those bees points again, and we're going to bring the reflector in. It's going to sit on top of the tooth. Then we're going to release it, and it's going to lock into place. And now we have a 6-inch reflector mounted to the front of the light. The next thing we're going to talk about is the different types of modifiers we have that go onto the front of this instrument. So this is just called a reflector. That's all it is just a basic reflector. Inside of the reflector, we can put a grid spot. So these grid spots come in 4 different sizes: a 10 degree, a 20 degree, a 30 degree, and a 40 degree. Now these change our beam field angle, right? So what does that mean? Well, with this reflector that's in here right now, we're going to put light out of this thing at about 180 degrees. So it's just going to spray and go everywhere. Whole point of working in the studio is about control. So if we were to take a grid spot, this one's a 20 degree, we take it with the tab facing out, and we've got a metal spring right here. We bring it into the front of the reflector and it snaps into place. Now, this one's a 20 degree, so the light field that's going to come out of this is 20 degrees. Another important thing to bring up about this modifier, the reflector and the grid spots, these are both considered harsh lights. These are not soft lights. Remember we discussed the difference between harsh light and soft light the other day? with my rendition of a cloudy day and a sunny day and looking at your shadow, right? So this is a 20-degree grid or honeycomb. You can use either term. There's a tab on each one of them. Make sure that tab is facing out. If you put it in, it's going to melt. So it just snaps right into place like so. Voila, done. Now, one safety note about the grid. Remember we talked about the modeling light in the instrument, how it is always on until the strobe fires when you engage it on the back of the control panel. Please do not run the modeling light continuously when you have a grid mounted to the front of the instrument or a gel. We'll get to the gels in a minute. Turn the modeling light on, focus the light where you need it to be, test the light, and then once you have it set, turn the modeling light back off, please. It captures heat, and then that heat will cause this grid to warp. Then they eventually get to the point where all we can do is throw them away. So that is our 6-inch reflector and a grid spot or a honeycomb.